Okay. All right. Can you all hear me okay? I had to kind of mess with these settings a little bit, try to get back live. Still trying to deal with good old YouTube. Okay. Let me just recap. Okay, let me just do a quick recap where we're at, okay? I had to restart the stream because I had to change some settings, and I had to lower, hopefully everything works. I need to kind of figure out what's going on. But let's just recap. So what we're discussing is Bivens, right? The Bivens test. And that applies when you want to sue a federal agent for violating your constitutional rights. It is different from you suing a local or state cop for violating your rights. That is the critical component here, is does it meet the Bivens test, right? Bivens, which is named on a 1971 Supreme Court case, requires that you have to first determine, did this federal agent violate your rights in three specific contexts that the Supreme Court recognized in a 9-year period from 1971 to 1980? If it turns out that the Supreme Court, or if it turns out that the federal agent violated your rights in a quote new context, then you cannot bring, well, you can bring a lawsuit against them, but your lawsuit would likely fail. And so that's what I'm talking about today is, hey, look, we have this, so basically that's the standard, right? You file a lawsuit against a state or local law enforcement official. The standard's going to be qualified immunity, right? That's you get to do that analysis. If the defendant that you're suing is a federal agent, before you get to the qualified immunity test, you have to overcome what's called the Bivens test. And that is a almost absolute bar to recovery. So what we're doing is we're watching this video from Press NH Now, where they did a recent audit on a public sidewalk, lawfully carrying a firearm, lawfully filming, but it just so happens to be outside an FBI building, and and of course they get stopped by this individual who is presumably a federal agent who is holding a firearm at them, holding them at gunpoint. That is that's kind of a critical issue that we're looking at right now. So where am I getting at with this? Well, if Press NH Now were to file a federal lawsuit against this individual who we assume is a federal agent, chances are that lawsuit would fail under Bivens, right? Now, what does that mean? I think there needs to be more investigation looked into this, right? Because there are other things he can do. Is there criminal liability? Did he file charges, right? Is the individual actually a federal agent, right? That's important. If the individual is a private person, obviously that's a lawsuit. There's obvious criminal liability. Is the individual a state or local law enforcement officer? Well, if that's the case, then he can file a lawsuit and potentially see if he can overcome qualified immunity issues. But if this individual is a federal law enforcement officer, while there could be criminal liability for the conduct, civil liability will likely fail under Bivens. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So we were in the process of watching this video. So I'm going to resume playing it right now. No local law enforcement officers have arrived yet. We're still looking, within a couple of minutes, this thing went from 0 to 100. So here we go.
Walking down the street. He's going to keep his arms up, okay? Until we're out of sight. Do you understand? What? He's going to walk towards me, okay?
The agent not even paying attention to the guy holding the camera.
Put your arms up higher and start walking. Yep. Put your arms up and start walking. Do you even know how to use that thing? Piece of.
Need to learn the law.
What's your name? What's your name, dude? Your finger better not be on that trigger, dude.
Probably is.
We're walking. Do you understand?
Need to learn the law in Florida.
We're not detained, right?
I mean, to me, this is just absurd. This right here. I hope they find out if this guy is in fact a federal agent or not. In the worst case scenario, even if again, file criminal charges, I would even file a complaint with the FBI to find out if this guy is a federal agent or even a state agent, but affiliated with the FBI for whatever task force or anything. Because not knowing anything that's going on to do this is absurd. Does he have handcuffs on the steering wheel there? Interesting.
Hey, put your gun down, dude. Put it down. There's no reason to have your firearms out. We're on a public sidewalk. We're on a public sidewalk. We have a right to open carry. There's no threat.
True.
Put your gun down. Put your gun.
And you can tell it's not serious, right? That people aren't taking this serious because, as you can see, there's a couple of other individuals who are walking around, presumably also federal agents, and not one of them is sitting here saying, hey, look, this is a threat. We need to be armed, right? And of course, the individual with the firearm drawn, he's not even hiding behind cover. I mean, it's pretty blatant and egregious. I'm actually surprised cops or anybody hasn't shown up yet.
Down now. This is a First and Second Amendment right to record and open carry. Put your guns down now. You're going to be violating our rights. I suggest you put your gun down. Put your weapons down.
So I guess someone finally told him, hey, you need to get behind cover, right? So he's right. He is right that, well, he said you are going to be violating our rights. The reality is he probably already did violate the rights. I'd have to look up how the 11th Circuit has interpreted these specific issues. But again, we still run into the Bivens issue. The Supreme Court, based on what the Supreme Court rulings are, a lawsuit of this nature probably would not go forward.
There's no threat. Put your guns down.
There's a guy on the phone. It looks like they finally, someone finally called 911 or cops.
Now, this is a.
Again, this is kind of that mindset of all these individuals coming out looking. They hear him saying, put the gun down. There's no threat. We're exercising our rights. And no one is telling this guy, like, hey, why do you have your firearm drawn on them in the first place? Right? No one's asking that.
First and Second Amendment right. You want to violate our rights? I dare you to.
You already are.
I am not armed. I am not armed. There's no threat. His arms are up.
So maybe somebody finally did say something to him, right? Because there's people around him and he obviously decided to put the firearm down, which is good. De-escalation.
What the f? We're walking away. We're on a public sidewalk. We're not coming on the property. We're not a threat.
It's good. Good response.
Shut the f up. You ain't gonna do. You're threatening us now?
Nothing new, right?
We're walking away. Put your arms up higher, dude.
You know, Press NH now, if he's the one behind the camera, I have to applaud that he's maintaining pretty good awareness of the situation, right? He realizes what these individuals, these officers, presumably these officers are doing, but he's also looking out for his buddy as well to make sure that they're not doing anything on their end that would cause some kind of escalation, right?
Put your guns away, dude. We're on a public sidewalk, exercising a First and Second Amendment right. Put your guns away.
Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4 people just kind of hanging out. Looks like one of them. They all got their. It looks like they all have their firearms drawn. And you might not be able to see all of them yet. There you go. They all have their. It looks like they all have their firearms drawn, but of course, none of them are pulling their firearms or aiming their firearms at these individuals, right? So again, this goes back to what is that idiot doing behind the vehicle with his rifle pointed up? What is he doing?
Ski a little pig. Stand right there. Keep your arms up. Turn. No, you got to turn towards them, bro. You have to turn towards them. I just want to be out of their sight. Are you willing to take the arrest? No search, no seizure. Okay? Remind them.
So, again, at this point, they're anticipating an arrest. I'm trying to think for what, like, right? Why would they be arrested? But, and here's what I would say. Anytime I represent auditors or people who film, they always make a big deal about the fact that this stuff is planned, and so just keep that in mind. That's always going to be a point of contention, but at the end of the day, I don't think it matters, right? It doesn't matter for purposes of qualified immunity. I should say that. It could matter in terms of whether or not they're going to offer a settlement at a certain amount. It could potentially matter when they present the story to a jury, right? If they want to get the jury to be upset at, oh, well, you all planned this, you got what you deserved. You know what I mean? But just keep in mind that they will try to make a big issue in discovery. They'll make a big issue out of it in front of the judge and obviously in front of the jury. So, when we all hear that, like, hey, are you willing to take an arrest? And then, you'll hear later in the video, he talks about, oh, well, we're just testing you. These are things that in a civil lawsuit, the other side would definitely try to make a big deal about. But again, you're completely within your rights to do it. I'm just giving you fair warning and forewarning that in a lawsuit, the other side will absolutely make a big deal about it.
First and Second Amendment right, open carry is legal. Okay? Am I being detained? All that, dude. So my buddy's got his arms up. I'm not armed, he is. I'm trying to protect him as well. They have all their guns up over there. Here, step to the right.
What is that?
Yep. F you.
Unfortunately, that's because of
Dude,
Bivens.
this is insane, guys.
It's about the extent
okay.
you can do.
Don't aim that gun at me again, dude.
So it looks like everybody's
You're making a big bad decision right now.
Yeah,
I'm warning you.
It's been a bad decision since the beginning. Looks like everyone's waiting for law enforcement, local law enforcement to show up.
Scared little pigs. Look at you all. Afraid of the Second Amendment. Huh? They're coming? Whoa! We're no threat.
I wonder if they've open carried the, not open carry. I wonder if they have done an open records request yet with local law enforcement, what kind of call they received, because you can't see it yet. But local law enforcement responds, right? They stage far away, and then one of them has their weapons drawn, their rifle. They went and actually got their rifle. And I guess they were trying to flank them.
We're no threat. Can I approach? I'm not armed. I'm not armed. Okay? His arms are up.
And that's a pretty, again, that's pretty good awareness, and I think that's the right step for Press and H now to do is to declare to law enforcement, right, and anybody that's a potential threat of your intentions, that you're not a threat, because you never know. Sometimes these guys can have happy trigger fingers, and you don't want to make it worse than what you're already dealing with.
What? For what? No, we're on a public sidewalk, and we're not committing a crime.
So, as mentioned in the other stream before I got, before we had to kind of reset things, in a Texas case where I represented CJ Grissom and James Everard against the city of Olmos Park for almost a similar type audit, but on a public sidewalk, the court made a big deal when it came to granting qualified immunity. The fact that the officers had a lawful right, apparently had a lawful right to instruct individuals to get down on the ground to at least, for their safety or whatever reason, but that it was not an unlawful order, right? So that is what that is what we were looking at here. When I see, like, he's telling them he's not going to get on the ground, I would just say, to the extent you're trying to build a case to overcome qualified immunity, you want to obey even questionable orders, right? If they're clearly unlawful, that's completely different. But to the extent they say get on the ground, if the intent is a lawsuit, right, and the intent is don't give the court any excuses or any way out of this to be able to let these guys escape qualified immunity. But again, for purposes of this video, the target for a lawsuit would not be the local law enforcement officers. It would be presumably the FBI agents. But again, we have a whole different issue there with the Bivens stuff.
No, we're not getting on the ground. I want to be free to go. This is a camera.
It is interesting too to point
We're
out
no
that by
threat.
telling him to get on the ground, he's very clearly, that officer is very clearly wanting to detain him. And as we heard, the FBI or whoever the heck that guy was, he had no intention of detaining him. So it is interesting. Again, we don't know the exact information that these officers received, and for purposes of any lawsuit against law enforcement officers, the courts don't care necessarily about the situation. Like, hindsight's 2020. They're more concerned about what information was available to the officers, and that includes their observations, but what information did they receive from dispatch? And if there's any disconnect whatsoever, the court will likely assume that they're not aware of that information. So just keep stuff like that in mind.
We have open carry. Open carry is legal. Do you understand?
I bet that.
Do you understand? Open carry is legal in Florida. We are exercising our First and Second Amendment right. I can't hear you, man. Look at this. Look at this. Dude, what do you want to do? You want to get on the ground?
The fact that cop was, again, I don't understand why these officers, like, let's just think about this for a minute. If this was an active shooter situation, it would have probably happened very quickly, and officers would have responded en masse. The call probably would have been active shooter. But obviously, when you're seeing that 2 vehicles showed up and you only have one that's on the sidewalk with his weapon drawn, obviously it's not a situation that requires an emergency type response. I get it. You're going to get your rifle drawn because maybe you don't know what's going on. I got it. But why are you aiming your firearm? I guarantee you that rifle was probably loaded, right? Why is he aiming it at people? This is absurd. There's no reason to. Hands are up. They're telling them they're not a threat. But this is a huge, huge, huge training issue. However, when it comes to civil lawsuit, there's probably going to be protection for this officer based on whatever information they received. We don't know what that crazy federal agent was telling them. We have no idea, right? He could have simply said, "Man with a gun," right? We don't know their intentions. National security, whatever they want to say. And of course, courts are going to say, well, you know what? We're not going to second guess this officer's decision. But here's the problem. I would still hope that they look at this situation and say, why are we aiming our firearms? Why are we doing that? When we take in all the information available, it does not make sense. Unfortunately, though, are they going to be protected? Who knows? So when you're in a conservative venue like the 11th Circuit in Florida, probably.
Huh?
I don't want to make any sense.
We're no threat. We are no threat. Please, put your weapons down. Please, I'm not armed.
So this tells me everything I need to know at this point. If I were a court or if I were a attorney evaluating this case, the way this individual, this police officer is walking up, he's walking up nonchalantly, no firearm drawn. If you want to know what type of call that they're getting, just look at this officer right here. No firearm drawn. So why did the other officer have his rifle drawn and pointed? Right? It's facts like these you really want to stick out.
We are exercising our First and Second Amendment right to open carry. Do you understand? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Hey, sir.
Look, we have guns drawn on us. We're scared. We're no threat to anybody here. We're on a public sidewalk.
Okay.
We're actually. Hold on.
Listen.
No, I'm not. I need to express myself. Okay,
Hey, listen.
dude, we got firearms on us, dude.
I'm the lieutenant on site.
Okay.
I don't have any weapons drawn on you.
Dude, we're no threat.
You guys are legally carrying.
I am not legally carrying anything.
Recognize these.
So I don't know if you caught that, but this lieutenant here admits and acknowledges right away that they are legally carrying. Why? Because there was recently in Florida, there was a open carry ban that was struck down by a federal court, and I believe it was federal court, and the Florida AG didn't challenge it, right? Didn't challenge it, so the striking of the ban was upheld, and so people can constitutionally carry. Obviously, information would have been made available to police departments, especially looking at this individual lieutenant. He would have known. I don't know what the other officers would have known, but obviously, when you're an officer in the department, that information is available to you. So he immediately sees what's going on. And once he walks up nonchalantly, what do the other officers do? They come out of wherever the heck they were and walk up like nothing's going on. And I would say, again, when it comes to qualified immunity, I think there's probably a better claim, right? You'd have to see what information the first officer had when he decided to aim his rifle. But that would have a better chance of getting a couple of steps forward in a lawsuit rather than suing a federal agent because of the high bar as that we know as the Bivens rule, right? The Bivens rule will make the lawsuit against federal agents extremely difficult, no matter how harshly they violate your rights.
Lawfully carrying
Thank
what
you.
appears to be a rifle.
Yes,
okay?
it is.
And he's not carrying any threatening.
No,
manner,
of course
right?
not. We were just walking up the sidewalk, okay? And they guns drawn.
Okay.
Guns drawn, okay? We're no threat to anybody.
So I'll tell you why we're here.
I understand why you're here.
We're here because you're in front of the FBI building and raised some alarm concerns.
But we're
In front of the FBI building. That's why they're here. Again, if they didn't want them in front of the FBI building, you don't put a public sidewalk there and you gate it in. You fence it in.
on a public sidewalk.
You're right. As
Okay.
long as you're on a public right of way, such as a sidewalk, and you guys are not committing any crime, not threatening, harassing
No,
anyone,
no, we didn't.
then
We
you guys
just
are
got
lawfully
here.
doing it,
We
okay?
literally got here like maybe a minute and a half.
Here's the thing. I got to be clear. I appreciate good cops, right? They're rare, but at least in my line of work, they're rare, right? I don't interact with officers unless it's in a lawsuit context. So my perspective could be skewed. But when I see a video like this, and I see this lieutenant, he seems to be doing the right thing. He's acknowledging their rights. He's trying to actually de-escalate. I can't tell you how many times I see officers, senior officers, try to escalate situations, or they don't care about your rights, or they'll flat out tell you, especially if they think you're an auditor or you're filming, they'll flat out admit that they don't like you and they don't think you should have any rights. I've 1000% seen that. So seeing this lieutenant kind of take a different approach is a little refreshing. Obviously, I do think there's a training gap because the other officers showing up should have responded probably the same way, right?
We crossed the street, guns drawn. Okay, I asked him if we were detained. They said no, but he was aiming his firearm at us several.
And he told us that he would kill
And I told him, I said, if we're not detained, we're going to continue walking, and we're on a public sidewalk. We have a right to record, and we have a right to bear arms.
Sure.
But
so here is where I do have a little problem. When this officer is being told that they held him at gunpoint, they need to be asking them if they want to press charges, right? And if that hasn't happened, Press NH now and his buddy need to go down to the police department and press charges, right? Because again, the issue we're going to have, if he tries to file a civil rights lawsuit, he's going to run up against the Bivens rule if that guy is a federal agent, and his lawsuit's not going to go anywhere, right? So he needs to press charges, file a complaint with the FBI, see if they can get any kind of investigation whatsoever. Otherwise, I'm concerned about even though his rights were violated, I am concerned about what kind of relief he can actually get.
But they don't understand, obviously. They're the feds.
If you guys don't mind me asking, do you guys plan to go inside the FBI building at all?
No. Can I just identify you guys first?
Absolutely. My name is Lieutenant Wynn with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
It's been up for like 10.
So again, I have the link to this video in the description here. If you want to go watch it, if you haven't watched it yet, I encourage you to. But I'm going to fast forward. Ultimately, what this lieutenant ends up doing is going to talk. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he has any kind of body camera on. So I don't know if we're going to actually know what that discussion is. Either way, I think there needs to probably be a open records request to see what information the police department has. A FOIA request to the FBI. I assume with the show of force, right? As we saw in the intro, they brought out the Bearcat. This dude pulled out a rifle. I think they need to basically, there's got to be some kind of document, hopefully. So I'm going to fast forward to when the lieutenant comes back from his discussion. That's where we're at.
Property. We haven't committed a crime. We're not going to commit a crime. They need to back the down, dude. That is ridiculous.
All right, so what can I address you by?
Radio.
Right here. All right, Mr. Right here. So
Yes,
I
sir.
just confirmed it with the FBI.
So this lieutenant is well aware. He understands what auditors do, and he acknowledges that Press NH now has no obligation to identify himself. That's good.
FBI person who called. You guys didn't try to come on.
No.
All right. So
We didn't point the weapons.
There's
We
no
didn't.
issues. They
No.
were just alarmed by when they were pulling out. They saw you guys walking with firearms.
Okay.
That's why they backed off. So.
He did threaten to kill us several times. I don't even know if he's an officer. I don't know if he's FBI. I don't know what he.
So again, this is where I have concerns with this lieutenant. He was just told a second time, and that they drew. Not only did they point their firearms at them, but then explicitly said they threatened to kill us, and that's why Press NH now. I mean, it's great he's got the video, right? He take that down to the police department, and again. If they ever press charges or whatever happens goes to a grand jury, I mean, at that point, I wouldn't expect too much. As mentioned in my Texas case against the Department of Homeland Security agent who pulled the trigger at my client and the gun jammed, but he said, "I'm going to blow your effing head off," right? Thankfully, the gun jammed. He wasn't, even though charges were brought, the grand jury decided not to bring a indictment, right? So even if you do file charges and allow that process to play out, you're not going to expect any, don't expect anything more of that, but it at least needs to be documented and looked at. So if this guy does something stupid in the future, some kind of action can be taken. Um, I wish there could be a lawsuit if this guy is an agent, but I think Bivens is going to protect him. Does that mean you don't file a lawsuit? Of course not. If you can get like the Institute of Justice or some of these other nonprofits or a civil rights attorney to bring it, understanding that they're probably going to lose, but at least bring it as a method to bring awareness, to bring attention, and to give a court an opportunity to kind of say, hey, look, maybe we should allow these types of cases to go forward or recognize a new context. That's why you bring it, right? But you need to bring it with the full awareness that it's probably going to fail. It's going to probably going to fail, and you need to be prepared to bring it all the way up to the Supreme Court and hope that they look at it, right? Our case, the Supreme Court refused to look at it. The Byrd v. Lamb case. But the key thing is, if they keep seeing these cases, right, maybe, just maybe, they'll take one of them.
He
Yeah,
is.
so those are FBI agents.
I got it.
Okay.
That's absurd.
So, with that being said, you guys are free to go. You
I
guys
appreciate
are no
it.
longer detained. For
We
any
were never
reason.
detained.
Nope. Okay.
We were never detained,
Thanks for
Lieutenant.
exercising your constitutional
I
right.
appreciate your respect, guys. I really do. You're a lot better than they did.
He said, thanks for exercising your rights. I don't, I'll keep those comments to myself. So, these are there any questions? Anyone have any questions or anything? The let me see if I can do something real quick. Just give me a second. Okay, I'll have to do that later. Actually, I'm gonna try to do something real quick. Let me open up a paint. Okay. Actually, do this. Just so we can talk about Bivens and why there's going to be issues if a lawsuit were to come forward. I want to show you exactly what the standard is laid out by the courts. If I can, I want to try to show you a visual here. And again, this only applies when there's a federal, if you're trying to go after a federal agent or any federal federal employee. Why is this not showing? All right, let me do this. Let's see if I can maybe share my screen. Sorry, guys, I'm obviously still new at this whole YouTube deal. Oh. Man, what a mess. Okay. So this is kind of the Bivens diagram that I came up with here. what you have is the first question before you even get to qualified immunity, right? The first question that's going to be asked is there a new context, right? Is there a new context of what the court has previously allowed? Okay, so new context. That's terrible. So, what is a new context? Well, we have the three, right? The three that have been previously allowed. Let's see, does this work better? Yeah, new context. Let's make it orange. Orange stick out. New context. So we have the three. So when you have a Bivens case, right? So let's assume that these individuals file a lawsuit against that FBI agent that held them at gunpoint and that apparently was detaining them, but not detaining them, right? Said they weren't detained, but obviously, how can you feel free to leave if they're holding you at gunpoint, trying to give you instructions like put your hands up? Well, before you even get to qualified immunity, you have to start what the court's going to do if this guy's actually an agent. And we don't know if he is, but let's assume he is. The court must first ask, is this a new context than what the courts have previously allowed for lawsuits against federal agents? Remember, there are three that are currently allowed, right? And there's only one case that's been allowed under the Fourth Amendment, right, by the Supreme Court, and that's the original Bivens case itself from 1971, when they went in, executed did a warrantless raid in a home. And if you recall from my case that I brought in Texas, the issue, we brought a Fourth Amendment claim, but because it was in a parking lot and not a home, the court said that was a new context. They're going to do the same thing here, right? If there was a lawsuit brought in this case, they would say it's a new context because it did not involve a home and there is not a Bivens case in the Supreme Court or heard by the Supreme Court involving a public sidewalk. So the answer is yes, it is new context. So unfortunately, what does that mean? No lawsuit, right? No lawsuit. So just like with my case, parking lot is not a home, sidewalk is also not a home. So they would apply the same logic. So that's the unfortunate thing. But then the other thing is, say for whatever reason the court decides it is not a new context, maybe the judge decides, you know what, we have a Fourth Amendment issue with the Fed. I'm not looking at whether the home matters or not. Well, that you could have a judge who says that, like in our case, right? Byrd v. Lamb, our case, the district court actually sided with us that the context was similar. The Fifth Circuit eventually disagreed. But let's say the judge says, you know what, Fourth Amendment, pointing a firearm at individuals, I don't care if that was in a home or on a sidewalk, it's a similar context, they get to go forward. Well, then the court next needs to then look at, are there special factors, right? And so the key thing here is, if there are no special factors, then maybe possibly the lawsuit could go forward. But if they answer yes, right, there are special factors, right, such as, well, national security, or they have to provide protection to the FBI building, or who knows, whatever. Maybe they got a threat that day, and the timing just happened to be really bad, right? Who knows? If they determine, if the court says there are special factors, then of course there's no lawsuit. But if the court was to do all of that, right, chances are the easiest direction for them to go is to say it is a new context, right? And then for that reason, the lawsuit fails. So that's the headache that we have to deal with when it comes to we have to deal with when it comes to suing federal agents. They are well protected before you ever ask anything about qualified immunity. Isn't that absurd? To me, that's absurd. And courts are saying, if you want something done about it, you need to take it up with Congress, right? Because they're not looking at this as a constitutional, just automatic constitutional right. Yes, you have rights, right? That's the Constitution. You have a right to bear arms. You have a right to film sidewalks. But just because your rights are violated, right, especially by a federal agent, that doesn't mean you have a right to recovery, right? So how do you get a right to recovery? Well, the courts are going to look at the laws currently available. And the laws currently available, unfortunately, when you're looking at them plainly, do not allow you to seek recovery for intentional acts by a federal agent, when they violate your Fourth Amendment right. Not in this context. So could you potentially look at it from a torts claim issue? Maybe, but you can't do it under a 42 USC 1983 as you otherwise could if that individual was a state or local police officer. So that's kind of it for me. I wanted to kind of break down that video with that in light of what is the current law with being able to sue federal law enforcement officers. I wanted to bring up obviously my case, which I thought was pretty comparable, that we took up to the Supreme Court. But other than that, that's all I have. If there are no, I'm looking at the chat here. It doesn't look like there's any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here. I appreciate you listening. Thanks.